Good morning. This is Patricia Dancing Elk Walls with the Light Language Conference and also the Ascension Portal Community podcast. But today we're focusing on light language, and we're focusing on the follow-up from the Light Language Conference. And I'm here with Brian Mears, who was one of the co-founders, co-facilitators of that conference. And I wanted to tell you just a little bit about him first. So Brian is a visionary artist, light language activator, acupuncturist, father, and community leader. He's an interdimensional node holder of the cosmic crystalline grid. He used his placement as an activator and path illuminator for others. He's been an energy worker throughout his life and an acupuncturist for the past 2 decades. His visionary artwork dives deep into sacred geometry, light language, cosmic connections, and channeled messages from the surrounding star systems. Brian is one of the co-founders of this conference, as I mentioned, and he wanted to share some of his art, but also we wanted to just do some follow-up on the conference. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much, Patricia. It's great being here.
So what have you noticed since the conference? In your own personal growth, we're just going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, on the surface, it's nice because there's nothing else that we have to plan. So I'm going to admit there's been some stress release that came from the back office work that we're doing to try to put this together. But as far as the energetic space, I've just noticed light looks different to me now. People actually are. The first day that I noticed this, I was wondering, is it because I was looking at a computer screen for 3 days, which is something I don't normally do. But I noticed that everybody was looking almost like they were photoshopped. When I was sitting and talking to people in my office, like the light on them was different than the light from the background as far as what was actually in the room, as far as the light bulbs and the ambient light coming in. And that's just kind of continued in the space where there's now even more clear definition in between something that's living. It's not just people. I'm seeing it, anything that's got a pulse, right? The plants look different. I'm seeing the light within them in a different space, outside of like walls, chairs, and things like that. That's a big piece of it. Another portion was that just within my healing practice, everyone that I've worked on since the conference has been, I'd say at least 50% have sat up off the table when we were done and went, what the hell just happened? like, I don't know where I went. I don't know what happened. I know something's different and I'm back and something has shifted. And they all had a very somatic response, which I've had periodically throughout my practice, but this was very notable in those spaces. And then the other thing that managed to get done was that piece that we actually shared in the Light Language Conference, which was the anthology for the cover of the book that you've got coming out here soon. Right. So that was finished, and I managed to drop that off at my professional scanners. And we should have that back by next week, and then we can get the artwork to you, and we go from there.
Yeah, I'm excited to finish that book.
I bet.
So, I was going to ask you to share some of your art. There was a little snafu with, as you and I spoke before we started recording, a little snafu with recording during the conference that we weren't able to see your screen share. So we're going to do that here. And so that I can post it on the YouTube for the Light Language Conference and also the website.
Okay.
Post it on the website so that people can see that.
Okay. Did you want me to do the same ones that I had in the Light Language Conference?
It's up to you. It's up to you. It's whatever.
I didn't pull up the same one. So hopefully we can get the video corrected for the replays so that we can get that in there. And so I just pulled a whole different set.
Yeah, and then they'll have different ones. So that's perfect. Yeah. But I basically just wanted to give people an idea of your art and how light language, is worked into that art, and the transmissions and how that flows for you, and if you would at some point talk about how your art has impacted others, what feedback you've gotten from people who have purchased the art or even just seen it in person.
Absolutely. No, that's Yes, we can certainly share that. I mean, the easiest answer there is that people that come into my partner, into our office, she's a counselor and I'm an acupuncturist. They always sit in front of a gigantic portal that I painted once upon a time. And it actually was off of there's a famous, I don't know if it's famous or not, but IKEA has used the image for years of a rope bridge going into a misty tree. Real picture that somebody had taken. And once upon a time, I picked up a golden pen and I put a huge portal across it, so that now the bridge is going into the portal and you can see the tree in the background. And people sit there in our office waiting for us to come out, as we're checking somebody out, waiting their turn, and they just get mesmerized. They say that part of the treatment of coming into the office is just to sit in that chair for a couple of minutes and just be within the energy of what that shift creates. I've got a couple of pieces of art within my treatment rooms as well. And frequently I'll see as people are in thought trying to have some deeper reflection moments, they're staring at the images there and it seems to illuminate. I can see the frequency shift within them as they're experiencing that. As far as the artwork stuff that I've sold, people they love it. I'm very humbled to be able to say that. Everyone tells me it's incredibly unique. People that don't know what light language is are still drawn to it. And it's usually, I've never seen anything like this before, is what I hear a whole lot. And what I've noticed, especially when you see them in person, is that with adding light language and the layers and the depths that I do, it creates a space that the picture actually will vibrate when you sit with it a lot. Right, this painting behind me, that's one of mine, with the, I gotta look here, at the center and off on the nodes over here where the Vesica Pisces comes together. When you're standing in front of that and seeing it as the sun's coming in the windows, the whole thing has this shimmer vibrational effect. And sometimes your eyes feel a little wonky because of it. But it's definitely putting out huge amounts of light into our living space that we have here at home.
So you've infused it with DMT, right? No.
No, none of that.
No. Well, I'm gonna mute my microphone so that I don't interrupt you when you're talking to us.
Okay. Let's get the screen share here real quick. Yeah, that one. Share it. There we go. Okay. I'm in the ones that I chose to share today. There's kind of it's an evolution and a story of how I've kind of moved through some of the artwork. I've got a YouTube channel where we actually dive into a lot of my artwork and I get into the finer details of what we have in there. And at some point in time, I have the plan of actually laying out the storyline about how each one of these images is a part of my expression of where I am in my own process, and how that, if you look at them together, they all kind of stitch each other. And there's an evolution of certainly skill set as I've taught myself to draw, but more than that, there's the evolution of the energetics that are being explained within the piece itself. So this one comes out of, this is called Dragon Monk. We did this, date on it was, somewhere back 2018, 19, something like that. And it was a transformational time period for me as far as coming out of relatively easy divorce, but that meant now I'm a single parent of 3 kids. And trying to be able to figure out this co-parenting thing and how do we make all of this move. And people that have seen some of my older art, there's this monk down here in the corner, and I've always referred to it as the empty set monk. Some of my first artwork actually came out of trying to just recreate a Tibetan art, and one of the images that they use there happens to be just the monk's robes. And it fascinated me because during that time period, I was working with a whole lot of things on what's actually on the inside and worked on filling them out. And so this is actually the first time that I'd drawn the empty set monk in probably 2-3 years. So it was significant as far as now there's this transformation of the empty robes, and it transforms, and then there's a dragon that comes out of it. And then with the dragon, we've got 3 orchids there, and then the standard orb. And there's actually some light language across the chest here as well. And I'll zoom into all these pieces in just a moment here. So we'll start down at the monk and all the details. Most of this is a mixture of stippling and cross-hatching. One of my kids asked me the other day why I started doing pointillism, and the answer is actually it was their fault. Because when I started teaching myself how to draw, my kids were young. The youngest one was around 2. And you can't tell a 2-year-old, don't bump the table, dad's drawing. She's a 2-year-old, and of course she's going to bump the table. So when I'm drawing a long line and the kid bumps the table, then all of a sudden it becomes a zigzaggy little thing, and it doesn't look as good as I wanted it to. So if you're making a whole bunch of dots and the kid bumps the table, you get a little bit of a dot that's out of center, and it works out okay, and nobody notices the mistake. So my kids are the reason why I was actually going through the evolution of the cross-hatching into pointillism itself. One of my favorite aspects of this piece, at least down in this portion, is just the fabric of the robes. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to be able to create curves and volume and still have the texture of fabric in there as well. Coming up out of the monk there, oh, there you go. I did this in 2021. Coming up out of it, then there's sort of this transformational wisp, smoke, ribbons. I don't know what it is. They just kind of came out of my pen and I just went with it. And by the time we get up into the upper right hand corner here, you can see that there's a little bit of dragon scales that are coming in, and even zooming in. Yeah, there's a little bit of patterning, certainly all the spirals, which is a large part of my artwork. Down and through here, it's hard to see in the space, but there's light language right there above the antler that I was using to make definitions in between the different layers of smoke. And then by the time we're finally over here into the upper left-hand corner, you can see the ohm on the scales and the dragon's becoming more formed. Going down before we actually get to the dragon's head, these 3 orchids were actually representative of my kids because I was doing my best to make sure that they had what they needed and that they were blossoming and showing up as bright and beautiful as possible, regardless of the status between their mom and I. Go on, kiddo. So I just love orchids. They've got so much depth and delicacy to them, that delicateness, not delicacy. Maybe the taste good, I have no idea. The delicateness with them, they're just such fun flowers to draw because there's so many different layers of how the petals show up in these unique petals that are coming down off the bottom and kind of give it that tongue out of the orchid flower itself. So then getting back over to the dragon itself, we've got across its chest, there is some loudly accented light language that we put in there across the stomach scales. This is actually in gold on the original, and so it does shimmer when it's in the light. And I was still teaching myself how to use gold in my pieces, and so there's an evolution that shows up as we go along later too. This guy, come on, other way, there we go. I don't know where this one came from, in all honesty. I had drawn out the rest. I had the idea of the monk transforming into the dragon and the flowers and everything else. And I sat down one night just with a pen in my hand or pencil in my hand and just sketched out this laughing, happy dragon with a lotus coming out of its forehead. My father was a hunter when I was a child, and so actually the elk antlers that are here, I have one of the racks from the elk that he harvested decades ago, and that's actually one of the antlers that was based on how they all work together. So, so that's the dragon monk piece there. And then, so after I had gone into this piece, I started working on this was cultivation of self. This is putting myself out. The light language across the chest was the space of, okay, I'm going to consider myself a light language practitioner, a light language activator, and start working with this and try to find my own strength and my own way through these pieces. And up until this point, I was really just weaving the light language into my artwork and keeping the auditory piece more to myself. And it would spill out to my children every now and then, but really it wasn't something I was using in my office very often at all. And so from that one, we had a couple of evolutions of other drawings that we had done. And then I met my current partner. This is about 4 years ago. And this one came out of that early union. Now the color on this one is intentionally a little bit on the tan side because I asked them to match paper color as part of creating that, as part of the scanning of this piece. And the reason for that is there's actually white ink in there as well, and the light language, and the scanner would actually cancel out the white on white, which is what they normally do. So we left it with just a little bit of coloring there. It's stronger on a computer screen than it is when it actually gets printed this way, just because of the way that the printers are using 4 colors and computer screens are using 3. So this one's called 5D Dragons, and it was meant to kind of commemorate the first couple of moments of when my partner and I met each other. It was certainly one of those when eyes met, we both felt the ripple within our souls and the shifts of trying to figure out who the heck is this person and why are they so fascinating on such a deep level so quickly. I'm a very earthly person when it comes to my energy, very grounded, and she is the opposite. She's very airy and loves to flitter about. And so is the connection of the elements in between air and earth. And so created this piece, and then around them is a fractal that was all hand drawn, and it's entirely made of light language in all those spaces. So let's go upper left to right. So up in here, we've got up in the corner, you can see these fractals that were created just by making circles across all of it. And this goes throughout the entire outer of this entire piece. And then there's a spiral that's going around another light language bar there that becomes the circle, the frame for everything. Everything in here has got light language in it on some level. The more leafy scales across the dragon's wings have got light language within it. Oops, didn't mean to select that. Hang on a second. Up and through here, thought we put some in there. I don't know. Light language comes out of my pen when it's time for it to come out of its pen, and so we just enjoy the ride as we go. Really had fun making these wings, trying to be able to put the upper ones as being transparent and then still keep some lightness to the ones that were on the bottom throughout the whole piece. And I chose to hide it within clouds because of the mystery. And it made sense. As the artist, I know more about myself than I do about my partner, who I'm just starting to get to meet. And so there's where the upper dragon happens to be within the clouds because there's a mystery about what's being discovered there. As far as the face that's on this one, both dragons, the faces are actually definitely channeled information. They just came through. It's supposed to be a cherry tree, sort of bonsai-esque across the air dragon here, and with the elvish. My partner has an elvish nature to her. She's very light. She's very wise. And it just fits. She also loves Lord of the Rings. So that's where that one comes from. Getting into the center here behind the 2 dragons, there's a spiral, and you can start to see a little bit of the white there right here in the center of that sunburst. And pick any one of the 2 radials going out. Those are light language. And in between them, we can see there's white light language in there as well, which is why this piece has got this slight tan color to it to match the paper that all this was drawn on. Over for the Earth Dragon, similar. These are actually the first time I've done these type of scales, teaching myself texture, volume, all the things that need to go into artwork itself. Light language all over the place with this one. I've always loved bonsais, and so I really enjoyed including that as a part of this piece. And then as we go down this dragon, there's actually mountains that become its spine, and we see it as we go further. And then crystals form its underbelly throughout all of this. Here we echoed, instead of being a monk's clothing, we echoed the rippling effect and worked on trying to be able to put in a dragon's wing, which if you've never tried to draw one before, they're a fascinating little animal to try to tackle. On the Earth Dragon itself, there's pine trees that are in there. We've got the some mountaintops across the whole thing, and little Easter eggs that I put in there just for my own entertainment, because that's what I always do. And one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is actually how this dragon is just embracing the side. The connection and everything else, but also grounding itself on sort of what does this reality look like? Let's push this portal open larger, which is certainly something that my partner and I had numerous times throughout the early stages, and even still within our relationship of okay, how do we go deeper? How do we look at this closer? How do we communicate in a way that that we need to communicate so that we can hear each other and honor each other and move forward. So. And then down over here in the last little right-hand corner, we've got more of the light language codes for the sort of the matrix that we exist within. Did you have any questions yet, Patricia?
No questions, but I was making notes. So, hold on.
Okay.
I'm house sitting for Sharon, and she has sound bowls and gongs and crystal bowls everywhere. So when he barks, it reverberates off of all of these bowls and gongs. So it becomes whoa, 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 whoa. Anyway,
wow.
So so I had some questions. So I noticed in all of your signatures, there's what I call a glyph, right?
Yep.
Like hieroglyph or petroglyph or whatever. Can you talk about those? No one else does that. That's your own personal signature.
This is my so I do both signatures.
Uh-huh.
So I've got my English signature here, right? The American alphanumeric piece, Brian C. Mears. And then I've got a very strong background in Asian studies, part of being an acupuncturist, part of just studying philosophies and everything else. And over the years, it became clear that I needed a chop, right? Their way of doing a signature. And so countless hours of sitting with others and crafting and figuring out what's the best kanji to be really able to articulate the energy that I'm putting into this. And so then we have Yiming Yixin Jin Long, which is wholehearted spirit of the dragon, is the literal translation of that. Yeah. The dragon is the ancient form of the kanji, with the not sitting. It's actually illegal to use in China. It's illegal to use the dragon in a kanji because only the emperor is the dragon. And so that's part of that piece. And so I'm going ancient, meaning before those other spaces. And it actually articulates the way that I approach life as far as from a whole heart to the best of my ability. I'm expressing through my spirit in this dragon energy that actually throughout the Light Language Conference, numerous people called it and named that as one of the energies that I bring. And dragons have been part of my life, well, for more than this lifetime. But they have been with me this entire life. I see them everywhere. I work with them all the time. They're in my artwork. They're in my jewelry.
They're certainly in your light language, the way that your light language comes through. Yeah.
Ooh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Terminology, my mind goes to glyphs, but this is based on an Asian. So this one's called a kanji. But
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So, and it is my glyph, right? Because we've got the little 3 stacked stones there for the signifying the stillness of Buddha, the right finding the balance, feel the balance of 3 rocks there. And one of the things I like about working with this is that I actually change its shape depending upon what the art dictates.
Right. Yeah. I noticed.
So yeah, and it just gives me that space. It's just it's vulnerable to actually translate that space because it is a glyph. It is a part of me. It is the signature that I use, and I put the one that I learned how to write in primary school on there because that's what people expect. And this is not actually a stamp, right? Each one of these I draw And so even in the creation of these, they get more and more complicated. I
Yeah,
think.
and there's light language even in that. No, I wouldn't want someone to translate it because it's like trying to translate light language, right? It's very
Yep.
personal. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's
Well, and then
yeah,
yeah,
there's
this one was
personal
very
energy,
recent, and this was actually there's light language on this
right? And there's personal energy associated that whenever you share, it's hard to say, whenever you share the English, if there is an English translation, which there usually
one.
isn't, but whenever you share that, it diminishes it in some way and also gives
Right.
away part of your frequency. And so personally, I wouldn't want to share the translation for it.
Hmm. Well, there's been questions around it before. It's okay to have it open a little bit. I don't need to have it. I won't repeat this story again and again and again.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also in sharing. There's also an honoring of this was a decade in the making. This wasn't just like, oh, let's go look it up on the internet and play with this a little bit. This is part of my own development, right? Which is one of my strengths, and it doesn't get weakened by sharing more of those pieces.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to make note of is thank you for sharing your love story,
Of
because
course.
throughout this light language conference, I haven't in my years in this body haven't had a lot of positive male influences, right? I haven't had the privilege, and I know they exist, but I personally haven't had the privilege of being in alignment with, working with, being in the presence of basically a strong masculine, divine masculine presence. You know, I mean, my husband was a strong man,
Hmm.
but there is a difference. Okay. There's a difference. And I'm not criticizing him, but I'm making an awareness. There is a difference between a balanced, divine, masculine man and a masculine man. Right. And
I,
so
I
I just from my heart want to thank you for reflecting that and giving me the opportunity to experience that in the way that Dina and I have with your support, through this conference and being that part for us. And so I just wanted to also thank you, like I said, for sharing your love story with your partner, who I haven't gotten to meet yet, but Dina is besties with her.
right.
So just wanted to pop that in there. So what else
Thank
have
you.
you got for us? I love the dragons, by the way.
Thank you, Patricia. It was a lot of fun putting the conference together, and I'm grateful that my presence was seen on more than just me being as part of the group. I strive to be that wholehearted expression, and of course, I'm human. I have the challenges just like everybody else. But that's really the core, and even why I decided to join in with the Light Language Conference in the first place was okay. We got to do something different. We need to get this stuff out. I need to get this stuff out, which means I had to be uncomfortable. But even in that uncomfortableness, there's the growth, and certainly releasing of different energies, and how to show up and be supportive, and patient, and great compromise, and still hearing a voice and advocating for everybody. Um, it was a it was a wonderful year and a half that we spent putting this thing together. So thank you so much. It was deeply a pleasure to work with you and Dina as well, as we navigated through all the craziness there, and just the constant drive to be able to. We wouldn't have made it if you hadn't been part of this. Right, your determination to bring this thing to fruition is absolutely commendable. Amazing how you got us through some of those really stuck sticking points, and allowed it to blossom into what it is, and still continue to build and add to the light language community on a regular basis. So thank you as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So along that space, we can go into the next one that I have as far as artwork, and it's actually divine feminine. So it works out really well. This is one of the few commissions that I've ever done. I had done a bull elephant at one point in time, for a patient, and a patient slash friend. And then somebody saw me working on it and decided to ask if I could do one, but make it a little bit more on the feminine side. So this is what we came up with to be able to meet this commission itself. It's roughly, well, it's Ganesh, right? I can't argue anything in it. It's got some of the identifying components to it. But the things that were in there that really make this piece strong for me is that the difference in between the figure of the elephant's head and then the softness of the background. Right? There's sacred geometry behind Ganesh's head. That's the dodecagram. This is one of the first pieces I was learning how to, or teaching myself how to work with that sacred geometry. That's the upper circle. And then the lower circle was actually 100% freehand. I just, again, sat down with a pencil one night, saw the pattern, and developed the whole thing as it went along. So to zoom into the top here, this has got light language along it as well, as far as the dodecagram, and then even little wisps of light language that are coming off of the lotus crown in those spaces. This one is not nearly as big as the last piece that I showed you. The two dragons, the 5D dragons, is 24 by 18. This one was only 9 by 12, so much smaller in size, and so that's why some of the detail is less on this area. So just a little bit of a close-up there on the eyes. I'd never done eyelashes before. It was kind of fun. My daughters had a fun time letting their dad know about eyeshadow and where the shading should be and everything else, so we had a good laugh at that as well. And then just down into the bottom piece here with all of the hand-scribed light language and just the radials that are coming off of that. For the collector who now owns this, she says that it holds a sacred space for her in her yoga studio at home. It's something that she actually sits with and meditates with on a regular basis. And she says it's helped her to embrace more of her feminine energy as she's working on balancing the masculine and feminine within herself, based on the stories of where she came from originally. So that's the sacred Ganesha there. Whoop. And then I had, so 2 years ago, my partner Jean asked if I would help or be interested in helping develop an oracle deck. And so she had this idea. As I mentioned, she's a counselor. She was actually really interested in helping people through transitional spaces. So loss of a loved one, divorce, that was really her focus initially, was divorce. But just the spaces of, doesn't mean that somebody passed away, but maybe somebody moved away, as far as like parents that are having to, okay, the kid's now off of college, and what do I do as an empty nester? And so we started working on what initially was called the Divorce Oracle. And she had some organization that was within that, within her own mind. And she wanted some of the chakras in there. She wanted some other images there. And initially, she was just going through my catalog of stuff I'd already drawn to try to figure out what would fit in the overall spectrum of the Oracle deck. It took me about 350 hours to draw all of the cards for her. It's a 44 card deck, and then we sat down for probably about another 150 to 200 hours to write the copy for all of that. And over time, it went from Divorce Oracle to Love's Healing Journey Through Sacred Spaces. And it's anybody that's used it, and I know Dina has used this deck quite a lot. They say it has a totally different message than anything that they've ever received before. Combining Jean's expertise plus my expertise as far as the philosophies, the way that we get through challenging spaces, how we have transformations, all of that went into the creation of that deck. This one, I pulled it up because it's actually one of the pictures that we liked so much that we were considering making it the back of the card. And to be able to keep people connected with the message, we actually put the picture on one side and we put the copy on the back side of the card. And so this idea didn't work out anymore. However, it still made it as a card in the deck. And so this one, the Cosmic Nautilus, is just, there's this connection. I used it as an ancestral connection. I used it as a spiraling back into our past. And I pulled it up as a suggestion or one to show because the whole thing has got light language in it. Here we've got purple light language that's coming up on spiral. There's the light blue that's going into that area. This one really gave me an altered experience as I was drawing it, because as we got down into these little spirals down here at the bottom, that would concave, convex along these lines in my mind, and that little popping in and out of reality without anything physically moving in it, other than my pen dotting around it somewhere. It really shifted some sort of a programming in my mind. And that's one of the things that I will frequently do with my artwork is I will draw until I feel something shift inside of my head. When I first started doing sacred geometry, I just kept doing the flower of life until I stopped feeling it shift. And then I looked for what's the next level of geometry. And now this is really kind of creating my own as we're going through channeled experiences there. So there's that. And then this one leads directly into the one that we were doing for the light language anthology. So this is the Nautilus that I drew 2 years ago, and this is the one that I just finished just last week, or just this week actually on Sunday. So for people that were able to be at the Light Language Conference, I was actually working on a lot of this behind the scenes while people were presenting. I think it's 7 or 8 people that were presenting were also authors in your book. Is that correct?
There's supposed to be 13. Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention. So originally there were going to be 13 co-authors of this manuscript, and then one got added, which made it 14, and then several of them, as life has it, has not produced for one reason or another. And you can't dictate the way that energy works and divine manifestation works. And so I know that whomever is supposed to be physically involved in the book will be, right? But you and I had discussed that because when we talked about you creating this, you asked for a list of the collaborators, and because you wanted to include their energy in these, in the painting. And at the time, we didn't know that you were going to be doing these different globes or eggs or whatever. And so,
orbs.
What? Spheres?
Orbs.
Orbs. Okay. I've got all these words flying around in my brain right now. And so I can't talk as fast as they're giving me information. So you and I had that discussion that you wanted to be very specific because of the artist that you are, right? You wanted to be very intentional and specific on the energies that went into this painting. And so I gave you a list of the names of people who said that they were going to be contributing to the book. And I think that we're going to end up with probably 8. And I think you said that somewhere when we first started. I think we're going to end up with 8 authors, co-authors of this book. I guess 9, including me. And so you and I had that discussion. You wanted to, as an artist, you wanted it to be very specific. And the information came that it doesn't matter how many orbs you put or spheres you put, because there are outside influences, right? So it's not just the humans who are contributing to this book by their chapters, their stories, their experiences, their transmissions. There are transmissions going to be included in this book from the unseens.
Absolutely.
And so it's very interesting that you were guided, the different energies for these spheres and orbs, and that you also were working on it during the Light Language Conference, because those presenters, 17 of us, were bringing in all of these frequencies and information, and it was feeding into this image. And this image goes on to a body of work, a manuscript, a published book, right? That's going to
Yep.
go out into the megasphere and affect so many different things, people, places, and things. And so I just think the way that this works is so brilliant. You know, it's a painting, but it is so much more. I mean, all of your work is so much more than a painting, but for me, this one in particular, because it's personal to me, is going to have so much influence on so many, even just sitting in the bookstore, right? Sitting on
Mhm.
the shelf or being on the web page for Amazon where it's going to be listed, just being on the web page and people's eyes meeting that one, oh, here's a book, you know, whether they
Yep.
buy it or not, right? Oh, here's a
Yep.
book, and they're going to be drawn to that image and they're going to get what they need from the image and the frequencies that are coming from that image, whether or not they actually purchase the book. So it is a great service that we're providing. Well,
I
thank you.
agree. Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to draw this. I mean, I was grateful
Wow.
to be asked to be part of the list of authors,
Mhm.
and write the chapter, and then finding out that we need cover art as well, and having the opportunity to do this was spectacular as well. I mean, working on it in the background during the light language conference. The kind of balanced the orbs based on who the speakers were going to be, and I just worked my way around the outside there. And then when we had to go on Sunday, we got a chance to do a little bit of Q&A with some live demo. I know we had those experiments with other people that spoke light language, and they came on, and we were able to show how it was different between the other practitioners that were speaking light language in that conference, which was I'd never experienced before. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that we did that. Yeah,
Yeah,
as they were transmitting light language, yeah, that was a very interesting experience.
yeah. No, I mean, the two that are right next to each other that happened to is uh, the one here that's more black and the one here that's more purple. I think yours was the purple one, if I remember correctly, Patricia. And then I don't remember the woman's name that was the black one, but she loved spirals, and she was just over the moon that her light language transmission ended up having spiral nature to it. It's amazing on both accounts.
Yeah.
So, cool. So as far as this piece itself, since we already kind of zoomed in on it, obviously it's got the Nautilus similar to the cosmic Nautilus that I showed just a moment ago, but I really needed it to be light. I really needed it to have more of a connection with the light instead of the more the cosmic energy that came out of uh, the stars. It's more depth. This was too heavy for what I was wanting to do for the book cover. As far as I've actually named this one Anthology, just as far as the connection with Anthology is a collection of information by various authors. So it works out perfectly as far as the name. And so each one of the orbs went in, as I've already discussed, and then the ribbons work into the Nautilus shell. And there's light language not only within the orbs itself, but then within those twists and turns of the ribbons that are going through everything. And then to zoom in on this one close to the center there, there's almost a pinwheel look to it initially, but I should preface all of this. The colors aren't exactly right in this image. When I go have these professionally scanned, they color correct everything so that it looks beautifully in the when it's printed, and it will look a little bit goofy when it's on the computer screen as far as the colors are off by a little bit. Nobody would know that except for me, but the in that space, this is just a little bit darker than what I'm used to seeing. So I just had to share that. So anyway, so there's light, golden light is what it looks like that's coming out of the center of that spiral. And the whole idea of using the Nautilus was really connecting to the ancients, right? We've got the 13 orbs on the outside. As far as the contemporary people that are here, those are able to input into the creation of this artwork and the book, and anything that is then built upon that, or even came to be able to, or came before it to allow this to actually happen. And then it was all of those 13 orbs connecting back to a source It's a long way back there. I loved doing the sort of the pedaling, the layering that came around all of this, and particularly the sort of upper left curvature here on the Nautilus shell. This one will also pop out and into the image depending upon which frame of reference you choose to take. And from that little bit of illusion, it actually will, it causes the whole thing to vibrate when you see it in person. There's purple light language coming out in between all these petals as well, and then you can see some of the blue lighter light language that is out here more in the ribbons themselves. And again, on the original, the blue shows up. This was a quick scan it and clean it up just so that I could have the presentation here to give the basic idea of what it looks like. Chose to go with yellow as representing light in the space because otherwise it's all white. It didn't have quite the same vibrancy there. But the whole thing was just a beautiful meditation to work myself through. Sorry, it looked like I had somebody coming up to my front door. And certainly enjoyed this piece. And that's with the previous spiral that I showed, I actually had to teach myself color theory because the last art class that I took was, I don't know, 6th, 7th grade, something like that. And so through the creation of the Oracle deck, I taught myself color theory, taught myself a lot of things that I had no idea how to do. I still love just doing black and white. It's one of my favorite things because then it's just texture and depth and shadow. But bringing in the colors here, I chose the color placement specifically on sort of an augmented color wheel because it does have, there's a brown over here on the left. There's sort of a white and a black that are there as well. And so it's not like a rainbow per se, but it's trying to incorporate all the different variances of color as we go through it. I suppose I should zoom in and show you guys some of these. This one ended up with a whole bunch of spirals going around it. This was the one that we already kind of mentioned on that piece. The purple one, I love the way that this one actually it almost looks embossed when it's seen in clear color. And then more of a lighter purple. Yeah, there we go. And then into a light blue. And then the blues into the greens. And this one right here specifically is yellow, and it's just day glow. I actually had to mute it down a little bit because it was overpowering everything else in the image.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this one is orange. It looks a little reddish on the screen, but it's really more of a carrot orange to it. There's the brown that showed a pretty well color accurate, and then a red and a pink, which look similar here, but they're not similar on the original. And then back around again. So those are the pieces I had pulled up. If you had any questions or anything, I can certainly pull up other ones, or we can save that for the next time you and I talk.
And so you're donating this to the book, but you also are going to have it for sale, and so people will be able to purchase this. And and your artwork as a whole is so amazing. I'm going to say, but there's always a but. This one though includes all the energies from so many different transmissions by other people. So for me, that's the importance of this particular piece. Is because there are influences from so many other light language transmitters in it.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, everything else has been my light language. The ones that were commissioned, like the Ganesh that I showed a little bit ago, there's a little bit of channeling and energy to try to be able to figure out what's going to work best with both what she was asking for and meshing her energy with the light language there. But this is the first time I've tried to collaborate a whole bunch of different energies at once. And the process of drawing while people were channeling was quite remarkable.
Yeah, I could only imagine. But thinking about your art as a whole, though, it's really not. It's really a misnomer because, I mean, you're always receiving information frequencies from other sources, right?
Yep.
all of your council, the dragons, the elementals, the galactics. And so I didn't mean to say this is better than the others, because the others
No,
you're
I didn't
also
hear it that way at all.
yeah, you're also receiving from all of these influences. I was just trying to say this one in particular was such a great experiment.
Oh, absolutely.
because there were humans, humans transmitting and channeling for you as you were doing this. So it's a very interesting experience. So do you
No,
teach art? I think I've asked you that before, maybe not.
no, I don't. It's the being self-taught. I don't know how to teach what it is that I know how to do. Right.
Yeah.
As I working on this piece, which has got similar flow to the monk's robes, to the dragon's wing, the pieces that I showed you before.
Uh,
Yeah, that's all self-taught, and I only learned it because I started trying to look more and more detail about, okay, what's the curvature look like, and where's the light? How's the light different from here versus down here? And it's just attention to detail and trying to translate that in a way that works uniquely to me. And I think that's one of the beautiful pieces of art, right? Is that it's all upon the artist's eye, and there's not a right one or a wrong one. We can all look at the same thing and see it completely differently.
but isn't that how the good teachers teach?
It is.
They teach people to be sovereign in whatever it is that they are doing, whatever they're offering. They teach them to be expressive and self-individualized. I don't know if that's a word, but that's the one the beings are throwing at me. So I think, yeah, at some point, maybe you'll consider being a guide. I don't like that word teacher. I really don't. But maybe at some point you'll consider being a guide for others, to be able to express themselves in this way.
Okay. Well, yes, thank you. I could see that as a potential. I think that I have a YouTube channel, which is the Expressions of Light Language.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for the link. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just at Expressions of LL. Um, and I can email that to you so you don't have to remember it. The In there, I actually start getting into the stories behind my artwork, and I'm in my mind, I'm developing more and more detail, and I could see that series turning into a here's how I channel light language as far as a way of helping people to be able to do that themselves as they're trying to learn and trying to move forward. And I suppose I have a little bit of imposter syndrome because I don't have the degree or anything else, but I know that's not how this stuff works in the grand scheme of things. So that's just an old story that I'm just continually working to dismiss and grow beyond.
So and I'm going to throw this in there because I'm a grandma and I'm going to throw it in there. So I have nothing against college degrees, but when you go to college, you're learning someone else's system, right?
Yes.
And you're being graded on their interpretation of how well you learned their system.
Right.
I don't want to learn someone else's system, right?
Yeah.
We need to grow past that. And I know that degrees serve a purpose, right? They give a person authority, but we're all architects.
Right.
That's a big word now. We are all architects and we are all sovereign. And
Yes.
we need to move more toward being that and realizing that. And so for me, degrees are not that important.
I very well stated. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I agree.
That's
I
what
agree.
the being said anyway. So, and the only other note I made was the link for your deck. And all of this is on your website. Is there a link for the deck on your website?
Yes. So the anthology that's on screen right now, that one is not currently available. I'm going to put it up on summer solstice. So we'll have that up June 21st. And we'll run a promotion for that, both for the Light Language Conference, people that view that, and then just to celebrate that I've got some new art that I'm able to share.
And I'm hoping the book will be published by then. So yeah.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
I
That
mean,
would be
it
wonderful.
should be. Even after I receive your artwork, I have to ship that off to my person that creates the book cover and
Hmm.
who formats the book. And he takes a couple of, depending on his workload, sometimes a couple of 3 weeks to do
Yeah.
all of that. And so, yeah, I'm hoping, well, it certainly won't, it will not be by June 21st. I can guarantee that. But I'm hoping that it will at least be by mid-July.
Okay. Well, that'll be wonderful. I actually, on my list of things to do today was I wanted to, since we had the delay with printing and everything else from the original plan, was I was going to dive back into my chapter and um, augment, now that there's after the light language conference, and I've told my story a couple of different times in a couple of different ways. There's things I'd like to add in between or from my original submission. So that's on the list to get done today. Um,
Yeah,
but
the conference was listening to all of those different stories. I mean, you and I and all of us have such an amazingly wide community, right?
mhm.
Um, and every day I come into contact with another person who's transmitting the language of light.
Right.
And so it's really growing, right? And so
Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with this person and this person and this person, but the conference was giving me, that condensed, we went from one presentation to the other, right? 18 total hours of
Yep.
presentations. And so it was a condensed transmission of the language of light. And it was good to hear all of the different stories and experiences,
Oh
instead of
yeah.
getting one or two a week or five a week, you got 18 in 18 hours.
Right.
Crazy. So,
Yep.
and the replay is available for people on Conscious
Yep.
Awakening Network. And so you can still go and buy the replay if you weren't able to attend. But I know that you're sort of on a time crunch because you actually took an hour out of your work day to come and talk to us. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? I'm on your timeline. My day is open.
um, Nothing in particular. You'd asked about the links. Everything's on my art website, which is briancmears.com. The Oracle deck is on there, and I've got links to my YouTube channel, and then I'm on Instagram and all the other places that people can find me. Instagram is my main home, YouTube being the secondary one, and yeah, I'll engage with Facebook when it's time, but I don't enjoy that platform quite as much. Um,
Yeah.
but now, outside of that, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on today and share some artwork. It's great to be able to. This is the first time that we've spoken since the conference, and just to be able to, outside of texting and debriefing that way, to be able to actually connect and have a bit of a conversation. So I greatly appreciate that, and also just excited, humbly excited about the light language community and the energetic shifts that we're seeing are continuing to build in a very um, it's almost like a whiplash sort of a level. Like it just keeps jumping up levels again and again, and it's just amazing to be witness to it. Be part of the wave and watching the wave as it's transforming as things are moving forward. So, again, thank you for both putting the conference together with me, and then also for all the time that you and I have spent with your podcast. It's just so great to be able to connect with you again.
And we're still friends after all that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because
I'll drink some water to that.
it was
Still
very
friends.
stressful. At times it was very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much again for
Absolutely.
taking the time out. And I'm going to post it on YouTube and the website, like I said. And
Okay.
I'll send you the link so that you can share it wherever you want to share it.
Thank you.
And I'll share it to Facebook because I'm still on Facebook. It's my way of keeping up with everybody. I don't
Okay.
have to have 18 personal conversations with people. I can go to Facebook and see what they're doing and message them
Right.
and multitask.
On that, just because you mentioned it, I just this week put up a YouTube, about this piece that we just shared, the anthology. where we go into it in some other depth. And actually, at the end of it, I ended up doing a channeling of the artwork just for that presentation, which is not normally what I do for that part of my channel. But it was pretty potent. Made sure that there's a link in there for the book when it comes out, as far as your author page, and
Yeah.
great stuff.
And your author page. So you will, if you don't already
Mhm.
know this, have to go in and create an author page on Amazon. So
Okay.
just as a note, on our Light Language Conference website, there are pages. There's a page for light language art, which highlights a number of light language artists. So if
Right.
anybody's interested, they can go there and not only find yours, but other light language artists. And there's also a page for light language books, which includes any books that I published and other references for light language. So it's a great resource for anybody who's looking for information about light language.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Brian, for taking some time out of your busy work day and family day. And I am going to stop the recording. Please check back, everybody, because we have more interviews coming up. And so check back on the YouTube channel for those interviews.
Thank you, Patricia. So good.
So I'm trying to see where I can stop the recording because, again, I'm a grandma. So.